Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Carey Morgan took the stand in the federal racketeering and sex trafficking trial against Sean Diddy Combs and delivered one of the most gripping moments so far. She says she saw Combs drag Cassie Ventura by her hair while hearing her guttural screams during a trip to Jamaica. According to Morgan, this was just one of several violent incidents she witnessed between Combs and Ventura. Her testimony didn't stop there. Morgan described seeing Combs throw Ventura to the ground, her head hitting a brick, and said she feared Ventura had been knocked unconscious. These allegations hit the courtroom hard, raising the stakes for both sides in this high-profile case. You'll hear how that scream shook the courtroom and why it could tip the balance in a sex trafficking case. When Cassie Ventura fled in terror, she called Carey Morgan. For 17 years, Morgan had been Ventura's closest friend, someone with a unique window into her private world. Morgan's testimony isn't just another piece of evidence, it's a first-hand account from someone who says she saw the abuse up close, and it's become a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. Morgan explained on the stand that her relationship with Ventura was built on years of trust and shared experiences, not just industry connections. Because of this, Morgan was often present during the most critical moments in Ventura's life, including the times when, according to her, Ventura confided about the alleged abuse from Sean Diddy Combs. Morgan's perspective is especially important because she says she didn't just hear about these incidents, she witnessed them herself. One of the most disturbing events she described took place in Jamaica. Morgan testified that she heard Ventura's guttural screams coming from an upstairs suite. When she rushed to help, she saw Combs dragging Ventura by her hair down a hallway. Morgan said the fear in Ventura's voice and the violence of the moment left a lasting impact on her. The situation escalated further outside, where Morgan saw Combs throw Ventura to the ground so hard that her head struck a brick. Morgan wasn't sure if Ventura had been knocked unconscious. She also revealed that after this violent episode, she and Ventura hid in a ditch while Combs's associates searched for them, both terrified of what might happen next. Morgan also recounted the aftermath of another incident, this one following the March 2016 assault that was later captured on surveillance video. She told the court that Combs showed up at Ventura's home, banging on the door with a hammer. Morgan described feeling terrified in that moment and said Ventura refused to speak to the police, fearing that involving law enforcement would only escalate things and put her in more danger. According to Morgan, this pattern of fear and control was a constant presence in Ventura's life. The prosecution is using Morgan's testimony to show a consistent pattern of coercion and abuse, not just isolated acts of violence. Her account provides specific details that support Ventura's claims and help establish the context for the more serious charges of sex trafficking. By sharing what she saw and experienced, Morgan gives the jury a clearer picture of the alleged power dynamics at play, how fear and manipulation could shape Ventura's decisions and keep her trapped in the relationship. Morgan's credibility is a key factor. The prosecution points to her long-standing friendship with Ventura to argue that she's a reliable witness, while court analysts note that the defense will likely try to challenge her objectivity because of that same closeness. But for now, her words stand as some of the most powerful evidence in the trial, offering a human perspective on the allegations and making the prosecution's case more tangible for the jury. Morgan's account sets the stage for another insider's perspective, this time from someone who worked within Combs's inner circle. That testimony could reveal even more about the environment Ventura faced and the power dynamics at play behind closed doors. "I got her right where I want her. She's young, very moldable." That's what David James, Sean Combs's former personal assistant, told the court he overheard Combs say about Cassie Ventura. The prosecution seized on this line because it goes beyond just describing a relationship. It hints at a mindset of control and manipulation. James's role as Combs's assistant put him close to the action, and his testimony gives the jury a look at what life was like inside Combs's inner circle. James described his first interview at Bad Boy Records. records, where the head of human resources told him, "This is Mr. Combs, his kingdom, and we're all here to serve him." That introduction set the tone for everything that followed. According to James, working for Combs wasn't just about doing a job, it was about enforcing loyalty and keeping quiet. He said that questioning authority or speaking out wasn't an option. This kind of environment, prosecutors argue, made it easier for Combs to maintain control over those around him, including Ventura. Inside this world, the lines between business and personal life blurred. James said his responsibilities went far beyond scheduling or running errands. He was expected to keep Combs's routines running smoothly and to make sure that the hierarchy was never challenged. He described a workplace where everyone understood their place and where deference to Combs was the rule. James became emotional, recounting how isolating and intense that environment could be, especially for someone who might want to leave or push back. A key moment in James's testimony came when he talked about conversations with Ventura herself. He told the court that Ventura confided in him about feeling trapped. She said she couldn't leave Combs because he controlled her career, her money, and even her apartment. According to James, Ventura was clear. Her entire life was tied to Combs, and that left her with no real way out. This detail is critical for the prosecution, who argue that it shows a pattern of financial and emotional control, not just isolated acts of violence. James's testimony also highlighted the emotional toll of working in such a tightly controlled environment. He talked about the constant pressure to stay loyal and never challenge the system. The prosecutors say this atmosphere of enforced silence and hierarchy is exactly what allowed the alleged abuse to continue unchecked. For them, James's story isn't just about one relationship. It's about a larger culture that made it easy for Combs to keep people under his control. The defense, of course, will try to poke holes in James's account. They may argue that his closeness to Ventura and his emotional reactions make him less objective. But the prosecution is betting that the details he provided, especially the statements about Combs's attitude and the structure at Bad Boy Records, will help the jury see a pattern of coercion that goes beyond the usual boundaries of a troubled relationship. As the trial moves forward, the jury will have to decide how much weight to give to James's testimony and whether these power dynamics amount to more than just a toxic environment. The next phase will test whether the prosecution can connect these stories of control and manipulation to the legal definition of sex trafficking, or if the defense can convince the jury that what happened, while troubling, doesn't meet that threshold. At the center of this trial is a legal fight over the meaning of coercion and how it fits the charges of sex trafficking. The prosecution's case hinges on proving that Sean Diddy Combs' alleged abuse of Cassie Ventura wasn't just domestic violence, it was a pattern involving force, fraud, or coercion. In plain terms, these are the three elements the law requires. Force means actual or threatened violence. Fraud means deception or trickery. And coercion means using threats or pressure to make someone do something against their will. The prosecution must show that these elements weren't just present, but directly connected to the alleged sex acts at the core of the trafficking charge. The prosecution lays out its case using the testimony of Carrie Morgan and David James. Morgan described Ventura living in a constant state of fear, afraid of both physical harm and financial ruin. She talked about Ventura begging friends not to intervene, terrified of what Combs might do if she tried to leave or if anyone got involved. James, for his part, painted a picture of a workplace where Combs's word was law and no one dared challenge him. He recalled Combs saying, "I got her right where I want her. She's young, very moldable," which the prosecution argues shows a deliberate effort to control and manipulate Ventura. Their strategy is to tie this atmosphere of fear and control directly to the sex trafficking charges. They argue that Combs's actions, controlling Ventura's career, finances, and home, left her with no real choice, making her participation in certain acts non-consensual. The prosecution wants the jury to see the alleged violence and threats not as isolated incidents, but as part of a larger scheme designed to strip Ventura of her autonomy and force her compliance. The defense, though, is pushing back hard. Their main argument is that the prosecution is blurring the line between domestic violence and sex trafficking. They acknowledge the seriousness of the alleged abuse, but insist that the law requires more than just fear or control. The defense says there must be a clear link between the alleged force, fraud, or coercion and actual sexual exploitation. They're telling the jury that while Ventura's story may be troubling, it doesn't meet the strict legal definition of sex trafficking. They question whether Ventura was truly unable to leave and whether her involvement in trips or events could be seen as consent. The defense also tries to cast doubt on the witnesses, suggesting bias or emotional investment could affect their credibility. Legal experts watching the trial point out that this distinction is crucial. Without direct evidence tying the alleged abuse to non-consensual sex acts, the prosecution faces an uphill battle on the trafficking charge. The defense is counting on the jury to focus on this legal nuance, while the prosecution is banking on the emotional weight of the testimony to tip the scales. Will emotional impact override the legal nuance that the defense is exploiting? That's the question hanging over the jury as both sides make their final arguments. How the jury answers that question could have far-reaching effects, not just for Combs and Ventura, but for the way courts handle cases involving power, control, and coercion in high-profile relationships. As the trial heads toward closing arguments, the focus remains on two major pillars: Carrie Morgan's violent eyewitness account and David James's testimony about a system of control inside Combs's world. Both accounts are central to the prosecution's effort to prove force, fraud, or coercion, the elements needed for a sex trafficking conviction. Now it's your turn. Do you think these testimonies will meet the legal bar for sex trafficking? Comment below and let us know where you stand. Closing arguments are coming up soon, so follow for real-time updates as the jury prepares to make its decision.